Okay, ladies and gents, we have been given a red alert today again. Goodness me. These conflicts are just getting more and more all the time. So we have Russia, we have Ukraine, we have everything going on in the China Sea around Taiwan. We have Israel, Hamas. We have all these things going on with more escalations. And now there's warnings of another regional breakout that could occur. So I'm going to jump straight to the shared screen here and get into this and what has just been announced. And I'll give you a little hint. It's another conscription. This is 2 more new conscriptions for countries, but it's not necessarily for Russia, Ukraine. This is for something else. Let's get into it. This is wow, just wow. After Croatia, Serbia is now bringing back military conscription. Why? Well, here's why. This is Serbia right in the middle of the screen here. And this is Bosnia, Kosovo. Some of you who are a little older will remember the conflict from the 90s here. I certainly remember it. So we've got Serbia, we've got Croatia now announcing conscription. We'll go on to this and we'll talk about Croatia as well. But Serbia is now bringing this back, and it goes into, let's open this up because this has just been announced today. So following in the footsteps of Croatia, Serbia is now bringing back military conscription in the form of a 75-day basic training for men and option for similar volunteer service for women. This has just been announced by the Serbian president. The reinstatement of the compulsory conscription, which was abolished in 2010, was first discussed by the Serbian Army's General Staff in January, as it was considered the most effective way to, what does this say? Replenish and rejuvenate the active and reserve forces amid rising tensions in the region, in particular with Bosnia and Kosovo. So here it is. Here's Bosnia here, and this country here is Kosovo. So you can see this is a whole new regional problem that is ongoing here. We haven't really heard much about this, but now there's a lot of talk about this region and how it could break out. So, I mean, goodness, the whole world is going to be at war at this rate if this keeps going with all these new announcements. Compulsory military service should be introduced in a way that does not scare people away and force them to leave the country. So why are they talking about this then? Why is he making this announcement and saying about they want to enact it, but not in a way to scare people? And that's because if you think about what happened with Ukraine when they announced everything that were as a result of Russia, of course, what actually happened when Ukraine announced, a lot of the young people, a lot of the younger men fled the country, or they saw the writing on the wall beforehand and they got out. So a lot of the other European presidents and leaders saw that, and they know as a model that they need to be a little more careful to stop all the fighting age men, as we love that expression, don't we? Leaving the country, fleeing the country. So that is why he's talking about that. And he said that we're only going to do a 75-day period initially. And he said this is the least anyone could do for their country. He added that soldiers would also receive a financial allowance during their time in the barracks, which would be a strain on the budget, but would pay for itself many times over. He also reiterated that Serbia is a military neutral state and is not preparing for war. When he was the defense minister last year, though, he said conscription should not be reintroduced because it has never been abolished, claiming it was just suspended and that this suspension should be now lifted. And this is another thing that we keep hearing, which is quite interesting. A lot of these leaders are saying, no, we're not bringing in conscription. We're just reintroducing it. Actually, what happened was we put a pause on it just to help the country out, and peacetime was just a pause, but it's always been there and it always will be there. So all we're doing really is just reinstating it, and that you guys got too comfortable sitting there thinking that the world is peace and the country is peace, and you got too comfortable. It was you that had the wrong thoughts. No, there's always war, there's always conflict, and there's always going to be conscription. We just gave you a little bit of a break. So you'll notice a lot of countries are saying this now at the moment. And of course, this is a softer way to reintroduce it. He argued there was a need to replenish the military, as there'd been no compulsory conscription for 13 years, and consequently the forces were scarce and aging. In Croatia, compulsory conscription will be reintroduced on the 1st of January. So less than, October, November, December, less than 4 months. It's not a lot of time, but less than 4 months this will be reintroduced. And it's also on the agenda in other European countries. This is Germany, they're talking about it, but so far Scholz has rejected it. France is considering making it compulsory. That will be a big one if France does that. The Netherlands and Romania as well. Lithuania and Sweden have already reintroduced it. So we can see how this is moving. So this was Croatia just a couple of weeks ago. This is as regional tensions soar. Croatia will reintroduce a 2-month compulsory military service. And again, this starts on the same exact date, January the 1st. And this comes amid heightened tensions in Europe. This is following the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but it's also due to the Balkans buildup. And again, this went through this massive war in the 1990s. Many of you who are ex-service men and women will remember this. You may even have served there. This was just after my time, before I joined, actually. This decision marks a return to conscription, which was suspended in 2008 when the country shifted to a volunteer-based system. We increased the salaries of soldiers, NCOs, and officers, their material rights not only through personal income, but also daily wages. The modernization and equipment of the armed forces I thought was quite interesting, proceeding as planned and in accordance with the agreement with our allies and the NATO leadership. Now, remember, a lot of this is not directed by the countries. We always kind of think it's our leaders that are directing the way things are going. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The NATO leadership, I think, is very heavily influencing a lot of the decisions that we are seeing, or at least advising on it and making these recommendations. That is what I think is occurring here. And again, other countries in Europe are considering similar measures. Now, NATO members Romania and Latvia say Russian drones violated their airspace. So this has just come out as well. One reportedly flew into Romania during nighttime attacks on Ukraine, while another crashed in eastern Latvia the previous day. A drone entered Romanian territory early on Sunday as Moscow struck civilian targets and port infrastructure in Ukraine. This, of course, is CBS News, let me just add here. Romania's Ministry of National Defense reported this. It added that Bucharest had deployed F-16 warplanes to monitor its airspace and issued text alerts to residents of 2 eastern regions. So you might be thinking, well, what does that even matter, a couple of drones? The reason this is quite significant is because remember that NATO and Europe, they're really on a knife edge at the moment, and it's really just Russia and Ukraine, although it's a proxy war with NATO and a lot of other countries. But there's this very fine line which could tip the balance and bring in other countries. And that would be, you see, once 1 or 2 countries go in, Romania and a couple of others, that's really it. We would then see this, we talked about the hockey stick and how this happens with conflicts and wars as well. Once you see 1 or 2 others go in, pretty much everybody else is going to say, okay, look, NATO member, they've been attacked, this drone landed, it killed someone, it landed on, it attacked the wrong place or whatever, and next thing you know, the whole conflict will escalate. And then what will happen then, and this is quite key, as the escalation takes place with this region here, you will then see other actors saying, okay, look, everyone's distracted, they're focused on this conflict, now we're going to do something. And this is where, I don't know exactly where it will happen next, but this is where you'll see distractions over here. This military is focused. Others will start doing things. And this has always happened. Look at World War I, look at World War II. You look at a lot of the conflicts as well around those dates. It's pretty much almost guaranteed to happen. So this is what you got to focus on as well. Let's continue on with the article here. It also said investigations were underway of a potential impact zone in an uninhabited area along the Romanian-Ukraine border. There were no immediate reports of casualties or damage. Latvia's defense minister said a Russian drone fell the day before, and this had likely strayed into Latvia from neighboring Belarus. So again, a lot of talk about Belarus as well. So this is home to 25,000 people. It's west of Russia and around 75 kilometers, 47 miles from Belarus. While the incursion into Latvian airspace appeared to be a rare incident, it says, Romania has confirmed drone fragments on its territory on several occasions, and we covered that a couple of times before. So this is accurate. They actually have recovered these drones. It's 2 or 3 times now. NATO's outgoing Deputy Secretary General and Romania's former top diplomat said Sunday morning the military alliance condemned Russia's violation of Romanian airspace. While we have no information indicating an international attack or an intentional attack by Russia against allies, these acts are irresponsible and potentially dangerous, he wrote on X. So they've also said, I can confirm there's no victims here and no property is infringed in any way. That's what the Latvian defense minister had said. Of course, it is a serious incident. It is once again a reminder of what kind of neighboring countries we live next to. We also had this come out as well. This is CIA MI6 praise Ukraine's Kursk invasion for bringing war to ordinary Russians, is what they said at this conference. This is from yesterday. CIA director and the head of the UK's MI6 spoke at an unprecedented joint public event in London on Saturday, where they praised the invasion of the Kursk region. And more said the invasion was typically audacious and bold on the part of the Ukrainians to try and change the game. Instead, it brought the war home to ordinary Russians. Burns also said the operation in Kursk was a significant tactical achievement. I don't know if I would say that if you actually look at what's taking place on the ground. Yeah, they're holding it, but I'd say it's sort of 50-50. It boosted morale in Ukraine. While the fighting continues in Kursk, Russian forces have been making more rapid gains in the Donbass region since the invasion was launched. The US and its allies claim they weren't involved in the planning of the Kursk invasion, but Ukrainian soldiers said that the Western intelligence was crucial for the attack. Ukrainian forces have been using US and British weapons in the assault, marking a significant escalation of this proxy war. This event was hosted by the Financial Times, and Burns actually downplayed concerns about any Russian escalations. And this is as a result of the support for Ukraine by the West. I think there was a moment in the fall of 2022 when there was a genuine risk of nukes, is what he said. But he said that he thinks that we shouldn't be intimidated by it. He said Putin's a bully and he's going to continue to saber rattle from time to time. I don't know if I would agree with that. This event marked the first time the heads of the CIA and MI6 had appeared in public together, and they've both been deeply involved with Ukraine's intelligence agencies right back to the 2014 coup in Kyiv. And then what else do we have here? This was from TASS, which I know some of you like it when I use these articles here. Obviously, you've got to bear in mind TASS is the Russian news agency. Russia and North Korea to keep strengthening their strategic partnership is what Putin has said. This undoubtedly meets the core interests of our people and is in line with the course on ensuring security and stability on the Korean peninsula. So again, this is also North Korea, South Korea. So Russia's saying, or what he's not saying, is that there is support there from Russia if anything happens with North and South Korea. Again, this is yet again another potential conflict. And he says, I'm certain that with joint efforts, we will continue to gradually strengthen the comprehensive strategic partnership between Russia and North Korea. And Putin said, this undoubtedly meets the core interests of our peoples and is in line with, of course, our ensuring security and stability. So I think the writings on the wall here, they are going to be continuing their alliance. And one other thing then, we had this report just out. The EU buys too much defense equipment abroad, especially from the US. This major report has just said. And that they're failing to invest enough in joint military projects is what this report has just warned today. The 27 member states are also failing to make best use of Europe's research and development capacities to modernize their armed forces. They're saying that there just isn't enough research going into this. They're relying too much on the US. And this report comes as the EU continues to struggle to find enough weapons and ammo to help Ukraine, which is now in its third year, by the way, this conflict. Europe is wasting its common resources. We have large collective spending power, but we dilute it across multiple different national and EU instruments. This has been a year in the making and is likely to fuel an overhaul of the bloc's industrial strategy, which is what we've been talking about as well. I think they're going to ramp up the military aspect. Part of the problem, it said, is failing to invest properly in Europe to create stronger defense firms. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. I actually think that Europe, because Germany's already gone that way, and I said that's what I thought would happen. They would go more to this military industrial complex because of the failing of other aspects of their industry, which you can also link back to energy. You need the energy inputs to get cheap outputs, and they haven't got that anymore. When Nord Stream and all the other sanctions took place, Germany just doesn't have that cheap energy they used to have. Nor does the Netherlands in parts. That's why a lot of those glass houses, greenhouses, just don't grow this cheaper fruit and vegetables and things anymore. In fact, it was quite amazing that rather than grow, they were selling on the contracts for the gas. You know, all this has impacts. You can't mess around with economics, especially when you have all these different countries all connected together. And I think this is what we're going to see. Germany is going to go heavily that way. And I think we'll probably start to see some other nations going that way as well. But it's not looking good. This is, again, I keep saying every time, this is more escalation. I'm just hoping and praying that we're going to have de-escalation soon enough, but it doesn't look that way. We've got 3 or 4 or even 5 now potential conflicts, and any one of them is going to be pretty devastating for us in different ways. But I'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for being online. Take care. God bless you and your families, and I will see you tomorrow.